you really feel free, or just constantly distracted? You wake up, grab your phone, notifications, coffee, music, laughter on a reel, noise, more noise. Somewhere in between, a silence tries to speak, but you shut it up with another dose of comfort. But what if this comfort is the real prison? What if your peace isn't peace at all, just numbness in disguise? Pleasure was meant to help us survive, but now it's helping us forget we're slowly dying inside. And the worst part? You asked for it. You may think you found peace. After all, nothing hurts anymore. But if you listen closely, there's a question echoing beneath the stillness. Is this calm, or just the absence of pain? We live in an era where discomfort is treated like disease, where silence feels unbearable, where every second of stillness threatens to awaken something inside us, something we've buried under layers of dopamine, convenience, and pleasure. Our modern gods wear sleek designs and load in milliseconds. They live in apps, feeds, screens. They promise happiness, entertainment, connection, and they deliver constantly, endlessly, until we stop asking what's missing, because we're too busy feeling good to notice what's dying inside. But when was the last time feeling good actually meant feeling whole? Aldous Huxley saw this coming. A world where people wouldn't rebel because they were never asked to think, where no one needed to be chained because they were too anesthetized to notice they weren't free. In Brave New World, freedom wasn't stolen. It was traded willingly for comfort, for pleasure, for silence. And maybe that's exactly what we've done. We think we've escaped suffering, but in truth, we've become specialists in avoiding it. The phone, the drink, the scroll, each one a curtain we draw over the window to our inner world. The more we pull them shut, the more darkness grows behind the glass. We no longer see ourselves. You don't have to be locked in a cage to be imprisoned. All it takes is a system that rewards you for staying asleep. And we're rewarded constantly, with likes, with noise, with comfort, with validation. We don't even notice the price we're paying. But the soul keeps the receipts. And one day it starts to whisper. You feel the quiet ache behind the smile. The subtle fatigue of someone who's always consuming but never nourished. You laugh, but the laughter doesn't feel like yours. You say you're fine, and you almost believe it. Almost. Because late at night, when all distractions fade, there's a hollow space inside you that nothing seems to fill. This video isn't about blaming you for wanting pleasure. You were designed to seek it. But what evolution didn't prepare you for was a world where pleasure became the very weapon used against your autonomy. So let's ask what's beneath the numbness. Because maybe your pain isn't the enemy. Maybe it's the only thing still trying to wake you up. There's a certain pain you've never really felt. Not because it wasn't there, but because every time it tried to rise, you reached for something to soothe it. A screen, a snack, a drink, a distraction. You've been taught to believe that discomfort is a glitch, a failure of the system. That if you're uneasy, tired, anxious, there must be something wrong, and it must be fixed, quickly. So you scroll, you swipe, you bite, you click, and for a moment it works. The ache dissolves, the silence fades, the emptiness is delayed. But that's all it is, a delay. The pain hasn't left. It's just waiting. Every time we postpone it, we give it more power. What we avoid doesn't disappear. It multiplies in the dark. We've become masters of elegant escape. We don't call it avoidance. We call it self-care. We say we're unwinding, treating ourselves, relaxing. But beneath that, there's something else. A fear of feeling too much. We use pleasure as a tranquilizer, a way to stay functional without facing what hurts. But when you mute pain, you also mute everything around it. You mute clarity. You mute transformation. You mute the self. Pleasure isn't the enemy. In its raw form, it's necessary. It tells your body you're safe. But when it becomes a shield, a default setting, it loses its wisdom. You begin to feel less, not more. And slowly, your inner world starts to flatten. Think about it. How many moments in your day are built not on intention, but on avoidance? You eat when you're not hungry. Watch when you're not curious. Scroll when you're not bored, just unsettled. We don't want to be alone with our thoughts. Not because they're unbearable, but because they're unfamiliar. Inside, there's a wilderness we haven't mapped. And that wilderness holds truths we've been trained to reject. What does it cost to never feel deeply? To never sit in discomfort long enough to learn from it? We lose not only the pain, but the message behind it. Jung once said, "Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. If you don't listen to sadness, it speaks through exhaustion. If you don't honor anger, it leaks out as resentment. If you don't grieve, you live in a low, quiet panic, always running, never arriving." So the question isn't, how can I avoid pain? It's, what have I never allowed myself to feel? They told you happiness was the goal. They never told you what it would cost. In a world where everyone smiles online, where wellness is sold in curated doses, where even pain is filtered, how can you tell what's real? You're not allowed to be sad anymore. Not for long. Not in public. Not without a quick fix. If you feel off, you're told to journal, to breathe, to reframe. If that doesn't work, try a smoothie, a supplement, a silent retreat. Still not better? Swipe, buy, distract, numb. Because in this culture, happiness has become a moral duty. And any crack in the surface makes people uncomfortable. So we learn to wear a face. One that says, "I'm fine." One that performs joy even when the heart is dry. One that reassures others so they don't ask too many questions. It's not freedom. It's a performance. A golden cage where everything is allowed except your truth. The more we chase happiness, the more it slips through our fingers. Because happiness, real happiness, isn't something you pursue like a product. It's something that emerges when life feels aligned. Even when it's hard. Even when it hurts. But we've been sold the opposite. That feeling good is the point of life. That struggle is a sign of failure. That pain means you're doing it wrong. So we build a prison made of soft pillows and soothing sounds. But inside we're starving. Because joy that's demanded isn't joy. And comfort that's bought isn't peace. Aldous Huxley warned us of this. In Brave New World, pleasure became the new repression. No one needed to be forced to obey. People were too entertained to notice their minds had been colonized. They didn't rebel because nothing hurt. And when nothing hurts, nothing transforms. The irony is brutal. We seek happiness to feel alive, but in chasing it endlessly, we become emotionally flat. Stuck in a cycle of stimulation, validation, consumption. Always fine, never free. The world says, if you're not happy, something's wrong. But what if your sadness is sacred? What if your unrest isn't a symptom, but a signal? You weren't meant to be constantly happy. You were meant to feel deeply, to grow, to ache, to reflect. But growth requires friction. Awakening requires discomfort. And truth rarely arrives wrapped in pleasure. The golden cage feels safe until you realize your soul can't breathe. So the next time you feel off, don't fix it. Sit with it. Let it speak. Because in that uneasy moment, you may meet a version of yourself that's been waiting to be heard. And maybe, just maybe, that's where freedom begins. You've been told that comfort is peace. But they're not the same thing. Comfort is the absence of pain. Peace is the presence of truth. And you can be deeply comfortable while being entirely lost. Modern life makes it easy to stay in that illusion. The bed is soft. The music is calming. The fridge is full. The screen glows. The noise of the world is distant enough not to disturb, but close enough to distract. You feel fine. Not great. Not fulfilled. Just fine. But underneath that fine is a fog. You don't feel sad exactly. Just flat. Days blend. Nothing hurts, but nothing moves you either. And here lies the trap. When you no longer feel the edges of your discomfort, you also lose touch with your desire for something more. You stop seeking depth. You stop asking hard questions. You stop risking truth. And little by little, you disappear inside your own life. We confuse this numbness with peace because it feels calm. But peace isn't calmness born from escape. It's the deep stillness that comes after chaos has been faced. It's not the avoidance of pain. It's the integration of it. True peace doesn't fear discomfort. It embraces it. It knows that clarity often emerges after confusion. That silence becomes sacred only when it's no longer a hiding place. Comfort says, stay here, it's easier. Peace says, go deeper, it's worth it. But going deeper requires presence. And presence is uncomfortable, especially when you've lived in avoidance for too long. Most of us have never really sat with ourselves. We've sat with entertainment. We've sat with noise. We've sat with endless plans and checklists. But have you ever just been with your own mind? With no task, no goal, no numbing agent? It's terrifying at first, because you meet everything you've been trying to outrun. The grief you never processed, the anger you suppressed, the dreams you abandoned, the voice you silenced. But here's the paradox. Those uncomfortable truths, they're not your enemies. They're the gateways to something real. To wake up, you must pass through the fog. And the fog lifts only when you stop trying to escape it. So ask yourself, are you truly at peace or just undisturbed? Are you present or just not in pain? The soul doesn't want a life that's merely tolerable. It wants a life that's meaningful, even if it costs you comfort, especially if it costs you comfort. Because on the other side of presence is a kind of serenity that no pleasure can manufacture. A stillness that isn't empty, but full of self. And once you've touched that place, you'll never confuse numbness with peace again. You think you're choosing. You think you're in control. But what if the decision was made before you even knew there was a question? You open your phone. A suggestion appears. A notification blinks. A headline pulls your attention. You didn't ask for it, but you click anyway. Not out of intention, but reflex. And that reflex was designed. Every swipe, every scroll, every like, part of a system that knows you better than you know yourself. A system trained not to serve your autonomy, but to hijack it. This is not freedom. It's behavioral conditioning. And the cage isn't made of walls. It's made of stimuli. Algorithms don't punish you. They seduce you. They whisper, stay a little longer, just one more. And because it feels like a choice, you don't resist. But when every choice is pre-filtered, emotionally engineered, is it really yours? You've been trained to chase dopamine, not truth. To follow ease, not depth. Every time you get a small hit of pleasure, a funny video, a compliment, your brain learns, this is good, repeat this. Over time, it becomes a loop. An addiction not to substances, but to predictability. Control disguised as freedom is the most dangerous kind. Because no one's forcing you. You're the one who keeps coming back. Philosopher Byung-Chul Han called it the burnout society. A world where we are no longer oppressed by external forces, but driven to exhaustion by internalized systems of self-optimization. Where power no longer shouts, it smiles. And the whip is replaced by the algorithm. We are not censored. We are distracted. We are not forced to obey. We are seduced into irrelevance. This, Huxley warned us, is the future. A population so flooded with stimulation that rebellion becomes unthinkable. Not because it's punished, but because it's irrelevant. Who needs freedom when you're constantly entertained? But beneath the entertainment lies something terrifying. Silence. And in that silence, a question. What if none of this is really you? What if your habits, your pleasures, are just echoes of a system designed to keep you numb? You didn't choose this cycle, but you can choose to interrupt it. The first step? Notice the moment you think you're choosing and pause. Ask, is this impulse mine, or is it programmed? Because until you question what you consume, you are what you're fed. And a life built on unexamined impulses is not a life. It's a loop. Not everything that feels good is true. In fact, many things that feel good are exactly what keep you asleep. We live in a world that treats discomfort as failure. But Nietzsche didn't see it that way. To him, suffering wasn't the enemy. It was the path. The crucible where strength is forged. One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. But we've silenced our chaos. Not healed it, silenced it. Huxley warned of a future where pleasure would erase the need for depth. That future is now. A culture where silence is suspicious. Where slowing down feels like guilt. where convenience is confused with truth. We think we're evolving, but what if we're just escaping more efficiently? What if our growth is only cosmetic? We meditate to be productive, journal to control emotions, heal just enough to function, never enough to transform. And slowly, the soul forgets why it came here, because deeper truths won't feel good at first. They'll shake you, strip you, leave you raw. But in that rawness, something sacred appears. Authenticity. Nietzsche called it becoming who you are, not through pleasure, but through confrontation. Confronting your illusions, your masks, the parts of you that aren't yours. And here's what few will say: real growth is sacred suffering. Not endless, but necessary. The kind that burns the false and leaves only what's real. There's a kind of effort the modern world fears, the kind that does not produce or entertain. The sacred effort, the one that brings you back to your core. It asks, what am I willing to lose to no longer betray myself? This isn't masochism. It's remembering that what nourishes the soul is not always pleasurable, and what pleases the senses is not always true. Comfort addiction is spiritual anesthesia, keeps you half alive. To live fully, you must let go of the easy high. Dare to feel without fleeing. Stay present when it hurts. Speak truth when it trembles inside your throat. That is the effort that leads to clarity, the discomfort that cleanses. Because in the end, the real danger isn't pain. It's the life that asks nothing of you except to keep consuming. And if you've made it this far, maybe you already know. Your soul is done being sedated. It wants something real, even if it costs everything unreal in you. You smile, you function, you say the right things, you reply to messages, you make your bed, you answer emails, you laugh when you're supposed to, but inside something is collapsing, quietly, because not all breakdowns come with screams. Some come with perfect routines and polished surfaces. Some look like peace, like success, like you've finally figured things out. But if you listen, really listen, there's a part of you that knows. This isn't peace. It's just the absence of friction, the absence of truth. And it's exhausting to keep pretending that numbness is normal. We live in a world that teaches us to survive without soul, to avoid without reflection, to smile while our inner world burns in silence. But every soul has a limit, a moment when comfort becomes unbearable, a moment when even pleasure starts to feel like poison. Maybe you've reached that point, where scrolling feels hollow, where laughter doesn't land, where nothing tastes like it used to. This is not failure, it's awakening. Your nervous system may be tired, but your essence is starting to move. And it's no longer interested in artificial highs. It's no longer willing to hide, because maybe the void is not your enemy. Maybe it's your invitation, not in the noise, but in the silence, not in the escape, but in the sacred return to yourself. We are not here to be perfect or constantly pleased. We are here to remember, to unlearn the noise, to shed the masks, to come home. And that home might feel cold at first, quiet, still. But in that stillness, something begins to stir. You without performance, you without sedation, you without the script. And you don't need permission to live as someone who feels deeply. You only need to listen and stop running. This is the quiet rebellion, to feel what others avoid, to choose clarity over comfort, to let the pain speak and stay. Because real freedom doesn't always look bright. Sometimes it's dim, sometimes it's lonely, but it's real. And real is what the soul longs for. If this video resonated with you, let it echo back into the world. Like it, not for the algorithm, but for the silence it gave you. Subscribe not for more content, but for more inner space, for more honesty, for more of this. And if something shifted in you today, write in the comments. No more soft cages, because maybe that's the first real choice you've made in a long, long time.